Your conference is being recorded.
Okay, so the conference is now being recorded, and we are now going to begin. This is the proposal oral defense presentation for Mr. Ki-Young Kim. My name is Dr. Gabriel Telleria, and I am lead by Sean Gabe, and this
the opportunity to present my dissertation proposal oral. In advance, I'd like to say hello to committee members and appreciate your years of care and supervision enabling me to reach this milestone. In fact, your assistance for me years of scholarly exchange in cyberspace is invaluable and precious. If you might know, I'm now teaching the subject of public laws at one local university in South Korea, and the online doctoral studies will help to enrich my knowledge and sharpen an expertise. I've been impressive over the peers and professors of Wharton, although we usually talk about the services of online education. My topic has been introduced by Dr. Telleria, and it currently should go within the intelligence circle, government, and public media. They changed several times. My topic has changed several times of the discussion by the committee to take place in this proposal. The motive of study underlies the need and implication of interdisciplinary research between law and public policy or administration. Also, I like to become a Walden alumni and store the years of precious experience for myself as if I'm a forefront of academicians at the directly transformative cyber world. I'm a little settled if I send my PowerPoint earlier. So you can go to my slides as you listen this presentation. There will be around 10 slides you can see, and I have a list, a summary of my presentation with titles. You can see greetings and gratitude, and I had time with brief introduction about myself and my motivation and about my topic. And you can see in the presentation for chapter 1, background of study, and purpose study, research questions, theoretical framework, and study. And I've also added definitions, assumptions. So overall, you can see topics in the slide in your document file with me, and I'll be brief about the first chapter, and I'll have some more time about chapter 3, but briefly, because it's quite on time constraint about this presentation generally. So this study has a background from government and scholarly world. So the scholars about constitutional law and public administration in Korea are very visual about these types of democratic rights. They provide a good insight and very helpful to promote our government performance, and also very orthodox to teach government for civil society. So very helpful, but I found a serious gap in the literature So you'll see in the problem statement next slide. So most saliently about this study, we can find a very serious reform movement from the past and incumbent government. So you might know the late president in the past government. He was now incriminated and undergoing the proceedings, and she was impeached. And new government has inaugurated last year. The government became strong to launch a constitutional reform process. So it will be a process of the years ahead. So this study has some momentum about that environment. And the public media also conducted many public forums on constitutional reform, and that result the wishes and compassion of Korean people about the need and great implications of a constitutional revision. So this is aimed to pursue some kind of and create some kind of bridging the constitution, democracy, and public administration. And you'll see in the side problem statement. So the government had been accused that it is ineffective and corrupted. And we can find a serious flaws and kind of under-research. The lack of study is quite convincing in my research. So lack of study on South Korean politics and constitutionalism comprise one of reason about this research. And the scholarly product generally is very flawed because it heavily relies on textual analysis or comparative discourse. And they usually end with a generalized statement and conclusions. So empirical research is very imperative to support the academia and a professional policymakers about constitution and the progressive government. So the research is purported to better understand the constitutional government. The first and main goal is to better understand, as said, better understand the constitutional government through democratic experimentalism in South Korea. As you see, through this research project, democratic experimentalism arguably is necessary to support the constitutional process and democracy building. Secondly, this study can raise the awareness and bring attention to global problem of questionable constitutional policy and diminish government success. That is, of course, through a case study in this research. Thirdly, the study can provide a broad perspective on constitutional discourse with the terms and concepts or frames of democratic experimentalism. The study hopefully offers an alternative vision to reform and improve the constitutional system, to say how to address the challenges associated with democracy building, how to increase public activism for the success of constitutional government. So I devised one primary research question and three secondary questions. The primary research question is, how does democratic experimentalism support traditional government? How does the national constitutional with the law of individual rights now the framework, and this part is mostly overlapped with review, and I like to present a view about theoretical framework and literature review. The theoretical framework used in this study is Dr. Sabo's perspective on democratic experimentalism for the rule of law in the modern constitutional state. It departs from the stringent Madisonian tradition, focused on the structure of separation and hierarchy, and suggests a new form of governance. In this paradigm, the familiar type of representative and constitutional democracy can be transformed into novel, directly deliberative one. Zoff and Szabo delineated key concepts to propose the frame of thought, such as private sector institutions and learning by monitoring, deliberative hierarchy, preferencing rules of individual rights, and so on. The theory eventually pursues the dynamic and effective constitution of and government, and the necessary process of consent in the face of diversity and complexity as a challenge of traditional constitutionalism. It integrates ideas and reforms into new national framework and offers a guide for constitutional interpretation for democracy and public accountability. So the literature review is comprised of three main pillars for explicating the current constitutional government. It requires examination and synthesis of empirical research on constitutionalism and theory in general. And I also survey in the literature review main theory of democratic experimentalism. And thirdly, in the literature review, you find constitutional government in South Korea. Heavy literature about constitutional government in Korea. And you will also be aided with figure 1, so the kind of diagram I have presented in the written proposal. So there is a basic structure. So the arrow signifies influence. So two-way arrow represents mutual influence and kind of a exchange between parties. And one arrow is unilaterally means kind of a exchange unilaterally, and the sixth arrow means the influence. So you can have some conjecture about the exchange and the kind of background and also elements through the end of this project. So you find my research questions and how to address the answers can be in conjecture through the diagram. So many terms and concepts would be borrowed from the legal circle of academicians, and also many scholars on public policy and philosophy have been will be utilized through the final science, and would constitute the framework of research. This research. I hope you be good and satisfied about the literature review. And you'll find in the slide about my literature review contained in the dissertation proposal. So I have explicated briefly the search strategy in your dissertation proposal, and also the meaning of sorry, can I continue?
Yes, go ahead, continue.
Yeah. You'll find search strategy, and also I had some thought about the use of literature review. So literature review helps build focused and in-depth information, which is several purposes. First, it helps to address the main and sub-research questions, and it also helps to identify the gaps in current literature. Through literature review, we can broaden knowledge base on the constitutionalism, on democratic experimentalism, particularly involving the Korean context of constitutional government. And we can prevent duplication of knowledge by present with clarification and by presenting the literature review in advance about article or books or kind of a section. First phase of the constitutions, constitutional government and tradition. Part is basically from the main circle of legal academicians, and they also exert to kind of explain the law should be to a new public governance. So you can find streamlined of research from a legal scholar. And idea and philosophy is specifically addressed the character and future in faith about a experimentalism. So this part is also useful to know and criticize the democratic experimentalism. And the Constitution on democratic experimentalism included very important elements to help to aid this research. So many variable concepts and terms will be used through the final study. And also you'll find the environment and the kind of end subject of this research, was the constitutional government in Korea. Many scholarly piece of articles and books will be analyzed textually and as coupled with the result of my interview. So hopefully we will conduct this spring. So the transformation in time about constitutionalism in South Korea, history and reflexibility, and prospect and challenge. Under the title of prospect challenge, I like to let you, the audience, to know the significant incidents and the kind of a model product from Korean National Assembly. And you will find in the next slide titled Nature Study, you see in detail my thought and the kind of data empirical process of my research. So you see qualitative you see the qualitative method and case study will be employed to conduct this research. As text said, a study is best suited to qualitative feature where researchers strive to understand and improve the context of phenomena being studied. That is because the findings of qualitative research generate an in-depth understanding, provide insights, and contribute to bringing about the desired improvement in the social context. I'm sure the qualitative research is appropriate to obtain a complete, detailed understanding of how the constitutional governments may be improved to maintain and enhance the protection of rights and the democratic process, encouraging an effective and stable government, leading to its success and increasing the happiness of the people. By conducting the case study of Korean government and democratic experimentalism, as well as interviewing people on the issue of learning by monitoring, the research can coherently explain the perceptions and attitudes to formulate a better view of constitutional interpretation and a deliberative process that fits well within the traditionally rigid constitutional system inquiry. The study should provide insight into points of constitutional and political importance, offer an enhanced understanding of successful constitutional government, and help address the current challenges and revision movement. So, you can see some of guests in through this research project on the title of nature study. I hope that you could be well understood. And also, I have to present the methodology about this research. So, first, I have to be brief on research design and rationale. As seen in Table 1, it can be more salient within the characteristics of the case study approach according to the formula of Creswell. I may present several grounds to select the qualitative or slim mixed method that will address my research questions. The research questions inquire of the dimension of how that is dynamic, lively, and process illuminated, and they would be discovered through an in-depth investigation of actors and stakes or interest holders. So, the query in my case is now why the Korean constitutionalism would be distorted, and often how question or what question will fit within the quality methodology. I have particularly been interested in building upon a theory that comprehensively exposes the picture and phenotype of constitutional government on democratic experimentalist inquiry. It merits an employment of case study approach. You'll be aided with the reference, take and in. As a participant and researcher, my background as a lawyer and law professor would help, but must take care not to be prejudiced as kind of all-known analyst's attitude. In other words, the convivial data from so knowledgeable law professors, legal historians, attorneys, and journalists have informed my study, locating the characteristic of constitutional government on democratic experimentalism. You will be well exposed to the strengths and weaknesses of case study, explain more specifically our research benefits from several aspects of the case studies. One is that the data collection is deciphered to yield information beyond numbers and draw conclusions. As is suggested, it is not being limited to data collection, but encompasses various methods covering research design and data analysis techniques. So you will find through my written proposal, I've make little elaborations on the merits of case study and the fifth to support this research. The role of researcher is, in order to faithfully execute its fieldwork into my meaningful data or document, is crucial. The results in a different quality of research outcome. So, researcher at all stages of the research process test them, which is inevitable before reporting findings. The role of researcher is important about reporting. Reporting is final stage of archival to present its findings as peer students complete its dissertation. It can be searched through the Walden Library and progress. The researcher has to plan on the times and location of interview that are more suitable for the publication, for the participants. So the role of researcher is very important, and comprise the merits of what affects the merits of this research. So should be solid and objective, and also consistent through refined final report. So you can find more about data collection and issue of trustworthiness and ethical procedures in the written presentation. A decade of experience and observation with key actors in my case would enable much more data in the form of journal writings and memos. The interview will also be a major form of data in this study, through which the researcher himself can learn about a culture or group by speaking with informants or members of cultural group. The public documents and records collected from the government departments, National Assembly, and courts, as well as the civic association, will be composed as another form of data that will be examined to delineate, support, and argue against the themes and stories. The materials, such as written protocols, charts, flow sheets, so various forms of evidence will be expected, but I'm not sure if this type all will be included in final report. You will be aided with my earlier submitted oral written presentation, written proposal, sorry. Under the general principle of qualitative inquiry, I divide the sampling strategy to deal with the relatively large number of participants and organize the plan of focus group interview. The focus group will be one time and around this April, perhaps, and I have some, so this was revised through the exchange of written proposal, and 15 interviews were finally determined. So I'm a little afraid about this number. But I also am sure that it can produce any saturation about qualitative research. The access and report issue typically arise from getting the homogeneous sample, as mentioned above. And I find it rather easy to keep selecting the key actors with the lived experience of constitutionalism and government. It is important, I think, to select the participants to ensure the selection of the most information-rich participants, which requires using a set of inclusion and exclusion criteria based upon the research questions generated deductively from my prior knowledge of the area and a preliminary review of a related literature. You will see through tables in methodology chapter the population for my sampling. The group includes anatomies, professions, and architectures. It's about time that I have spent. Research participants will be recruited through a volunteer approach within the qualitative components of study. For the final 15 participants, around 30 interviews on a proportional basis of each group will be initially chosen using email packets, including detailed information concerning research, objective and methods, and a consent form. Participants will be drawn from the Korean directorate of professors, attorneys, journalists, college professors, as well as professional peers residing in or near Gwangju City. Small incentives such as free meals or reimbursement of trip costs will be provided to motivate inclusion, because interviews are generally not pleasing and may appear tedious or cumbersome. The voluntary approach will help to assure the participants remain anonymous. Trustworthiness is so very important when we conduct qualitative methods of research. So I have great attention, and also you find my thought briefly in presentation. So I like to ensure it is credible, conformable, transferable, and defendable. As Lincoln and Guba suggest, these four elements of post-positivism have been enshrined within the evaluation of qualitative methods. My strategy to enhance the quality of research is summarized in Table 4. Please refer to Table 4 in detail. About ethical procedures, I think an essential ingredient in the ethical aspect of research is that the participants provide fully informed consent. It ensures voluntariness of providing the data and serves as one of the key elements to establish a rapport with the interviewees. The researcher needs to bear in mind that the most controversial type of research is one that employs concealment or deception. Hence, the elements of informed consent eventually facilitates obtaining an authorization signature in a time. And also, as graduate students, we have to be knowledgeable about the university's requirement, and the approval of IRB should be sought when data collection is undertaken, and as soon as possible after the research procedures are established. Generally, the norms and values to shape the ethical rigors are enforced by the scientific community, which means is true. In the slides, you will find some of the other areas, definitions and assumptions, and scope and delimitations and limitations, and significance. So you will find 7 or 8 definitions that will be used through this final study, and it could facilitate the readership in the future, I hope, hopefully. And also, I presented several assumptions that could not be empirically proven, but often assumed to know the world. So you will find the assumptions about understanding of this research. And also, the scope was explained, and I artificially made some limits, what is called a delimitations. And from the perfection of this research, we can still find some limits, what is called limitations. So delimitations, limitation has been briefed in the presentation. And I have presented significance of this research. So we can two sides of coin to understand this research. From a scholarly perspective, this research is significant in the help fill an existing gap in the literature that examines constitutional issues in South Korea. It could provide, hopefully, a connective and relational explanation of how the constitutional government functions in South Korea. And it also designed to explain the dichotomy that exists between the constitutional tradition and democratic experimentalism. In terms of practitioner's perspective, I hope that it as much use. This study could be significant given the seemingly general lack of understanding of democratic experimentalism as a key driver of constitutional government. So the results from this study can serve decision makers and public servants in general to make better informed decisions in support of more democratic and transparent government. Okay, let me close my presentation. Dr. T, are you there? Hello? Dr. T? Dr. Taylor here?
Young?
Hello?
Sorry, I lost you there for a minute. I have to call back in.
Hello? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Oh, do you hear me? Oh, I'm here. And I had ended my presentation. Is it okay?
Okay. Excellent. Excellent job. Let me ask Dr. Gates, are you on the line? Okay. So, Dr. Gates is not on the line. Okay, so to say, first of all, excellent job. You were very, very thorough. In fact, as you were talking, I had a number of questions and I kept on scratching them out because as you've read and presented, you covered and answered the questions that I had. I had 3 or 4 questions, and so you covered those. But I do have, so that's great. I commend you for that because your presentation was very thorough. You provided some in-depth insight as to the process, as to the background, theoretical framework, and your literature review gave us some very thorough background on the constitutional and democratic tradition in South Korea. So that was good. I do have, however, a couple of questions. Maybe you can shed some light on. You talk about some of the potential limitations of your research that are challenges arising from the constitutional crisis. So, and then you also mentioned the unique history of South Korea. So, if you could tell me a little bit about that, about what are some of these challenges that you foresee, and how does what's so important about, or what's so unique about the history of South Korea as it relates to your study?
So, first of all, we have 2 Koreas, as you know, North and South. So, universal discourse, perhaps from democratic experimentalism or communal scholars would be basically out of fit for explicating our situation. That would be also another dimension that I have to elaborate to bridge the gap. So it includes 2 sides of coin. It could be limitation, and how to clarify that gap or difference into a refined final report. I'll do my best to bridge that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, okay, very good. Now, you're obviously very passionate about this study, and this is a study about something that's going on in South Korea, and in fact, with everything that's happened between the Koreas and you know, all of the dynamic that and the potential changes that might come in the future. Okay, but given all that and your understanding of South Korean politics and South Korean constitutional history, how are you going to ensure that researcher bias does not filter into your study? How are you going to protect against researcher bias?
So thus far, I've collected the kind of a data that was a preliminary review of field and literature in character, and that would be quite particularized in the Korean situation. So I should be objective to refine the information into final elements, into the elements of final report. So that would be cumbersome in character, but I'll do my best.
Okay. Okay. Good. All right. Let me see if I have any other questions or concerns. What do you do you foresee anything that might be a challenge for you as in the data collection, in the actual process of collecting information from participants or other data? Do you foresee any challenges or any obstacles that might prohibit you from completing your dissertation? And if so, do you have a contingency plan to make sure that you are able to overcome them?
Yeah, I'm working here, and South Korea is quite liberal and democratic state. So generally, I have no challenge about conducting any scholar research. The National Library of National Assembly is very generous. I can be free to enter and collect document data. And online system of research library is very extensive in South Korea, and many scholarly materials, books or articles could be available at my desk immediately. So very fine about a collecting document, and I'm also very free to view TV news in South Korea, and now very in clamor about constitutional religion. A political party incumbent in this administration now very eager to pursue constitutional religion, and the opposing party objects to that plan. So very contentious and traumatic in some sense about this, about the background of this research, and very helpful to know the field development. One thing I'm a little afraid is from interviews. So how to draw interviews from any pool of my research seems very important to maintain this project objective and scholar and so on. So I will take care to recruit the researchers, interviewees, and I'll also file an informed consent in the final study, and I will make full disclosure of our research to the interviews, and will seek their assistance. That would be my best, I suppose.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that,
Hello.
Young. And yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. This is Shaquan.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. I do apologize for joining the call late. I misread the time. I don't know how I did that, but I misread the time. I had it logged for 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time instead of 8 p.m. So I'm very, very sorry that I've missed the presentation.
It happened to me. Well, I missed the entire defense one time, so don't feel so bad.
Okay.
I appreciate you chiming in. So, Dr. Gaithier, I don't know at what point you chimed in and how much you heard, but for clarity's sake, Ki-Young, I felt, was very thorough in his presentation of all the key elements, and he went point by point as far as the nature of his study and the historical background and his research questions. and the limitations. He talked about some of his processes as far as his research design, and so I'm quite content with his defense.
Okay.
I did have some questions for him, which you might have heard some of the answers to, which were mainly about what he could expect as far as potential problems with obtaining the data, or how he would address researcher bias, how he would make sure that he given the fact that he is from South Korea, and this is obviously something that's dear to his heart because it's something that he's passionate about. Sometimes we there's a researcher bias where we might see what we want to see in the data,
right?
And so so those are my concerns. If you have other concerns or questions, please, by all means, the floor is yours if you'd like to ask Ki-young.
I did just have two questions, and you may have answered this, so I'm very, very sorry if you've already addressed it. One question, I was just curious how you were going to select the actual participants who I know that they will be people who are either lawyers or professors in the related field, but just like what's the selection process going to be in narrowing down or finding, I think it was 20 or so participants to collect data?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for asking. I have briefed on that point earlier in this presentation.
Okay.
That is find in written proposal. Research participants will be recruited through a volunteer approach within the course. So it falls within the qualitative components of the study. For the final 15 participants, around 30 interviews on a proportional basis of each group will be initially chosen using email packets, including detailed information concerning research objectives and methods and consent. Participants finally will be drawn from the Korean attorneys, Korean Directorate of Law professors, attorneys, journalists, college professors, as well as professional fields residing in or near Gwangju City. Small incentives such as free meals or reimbursement of trip costs will be provided to motivate inclusion. So actually, interviews are not generally not pleasing and may appear tedious or cumbersome in some cases. So small incentive will do some work. Will do work. In some aspect, the voluntary approach will help to ensure the participants remain anonymous. So that could be kept confidential. And I could extract the information, rich information as possible extent, maximum. So that would be my strategy. I hope it could work well. Through the final study.
And I think you might have addressed the other question that I had as I called in about the biases that may arise from the interview, but I think that was what you were answering when I did finally call in, which would answer my second question. So actually, I just had that one question.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Gaither. So I think at this point, if you don't have any further questions, I don't have any further questions for Ki-young. I think maybe you and I can discuss over email about his presentation. But I'm certainly okay with it. I'm okay with him going forward.
Okay.
Certainly, Kim Young, this is the proposal presentation, defense. So while it's certainly important, it is not the final defense. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, for the final defense, the stakes go higher. You much more is demanded, because at that final stage, you are going to be defending the findings. You're going to be defending how the findings match with the theoretical framework, and it's really defending whether you answered the question or not. For this part, we are mostly concerned about you having all of the elements in line, and then you also being aware of the potential limitations and the potential threats that may arise going forward. So I think that said, I'm okay with I'm satisfied with his proposal. If you are also Dr. here, I can go ahead and if it's okay, we'll just pass. We'll award Kim Young a pass. Yes. And he can move on towards the IRB and his research, if that's okay.
That sounds great.
Okay, so wonderful. Kim Young, very good. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We are.
Thank you.
We are.
Professor.
Good. We appreciate your effort. We appreciate your diligence in getting to this point. I know that it has not been an easy road, and so certainly it's something that you should be very proud of. So at this time, I am going to stop the recording and then provide you with a last couple of issues on going forward. So just a second, please.